Hi, and welcome back to part 2 of this video, where we're going to talk about the arts and crafts side of this, which is how to actually make these masks. If you went on to Thingiverse, you already saw that you can get all the parts listed, and that starts out with some simple stuff. Starts out with a piece of Tyvek you can get out of a local hardware store, and a handful of some 3D printed parts. For all of the printing, we're using PLA. Polylactic acid is inexpensive, and it is, in theory, biodegradable, so it offers some advantages to us. There's a minimal number of parts involved here. We've got a couple of a nose guard, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Fits up in the nose section here. We've got a couple of anchors, which is what you use to anchor the rubber bands on, and a couple of clips that are used for strapping it behind your head. And they're really simple little clips. They just simply go together like that and plug and play. There's also the filter housing. The filter housing is a multi-component piece which has a front locking ring, which is used to press the filter in against the silicone seal in here. And then you've got a two-piece assembly which is used to hold the filter element itself and lock that into place. You've got the housing which holds the filter, and then you've got a backing plate which is serves the purpose of registration when you're putting together the Tyvek, so you can register and lock these two together with glue on the Tyvek faceplate. So let's jump into how all this stuff goes together and what the assembly steps are. First and foremost, don't forget the rubber bands. First and foremost, we're going to jump out and get a pattern. This pattern is a PDF, which you're going to then take and scale so it fits a full 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. This is the pattern that we're using for making the Tyvek mask. You'll have to adjust that scale if you have a child or a large adult, so that the proportions are correct. But basically, you print this out, and then once you get it printed, you're simply going to cut it out on a piece of paper. Cut it out so that you have all the dimensions. The only critical dimension here is the 50 millimeter span that you're going to have for the opening, which fits that registration piece in the PLA plastic. Then you're going to get your piece of Tyvek, fold it in half, create a crease, lay your pattern on top of that, trace your pattern out. Once you get your pattern traced out, you're going to transfer your little glue line marks. These marks designate where you're going to apply glue into what areas. I'm using contact adhesives. The number of tools required are minimal. A pair of scissors, an X-Acto knife, and I just use Q-tip swabs for spreading the contact adhesive on here. And then once you get it laid out on Tyvek, you're simply going to cut out your Tyvek piece, open it up. There's your mask prototype in Tyvek. The reason that you have these little glue markings are because you're going to put your glue on here, and then as the glue sets up, this is the inside face. You're going to simply rotate and match up the two curves so that they go together inside the lines. You're going to do the same thing for the other half, and that forms part of one half of your mask. When you do that, when you put the glue on here and fold it together, you end up with a shape that is now rigidized by the glue, and you're on your way to forming your mask. So we additionally put a little tiny piece of tape. This was at the advice of one of the people on this project. A little tiny piece of tape in the bottom, and that gets away any of the hard corners that you would form. And then you do that both sides, and you end up with the basics of a mask in Tyvek. There's your basic mask shape. Once you get there, you take your backing plate, drop it in from the back, you push it through and register it, so you have it registered into the front, and you seat your filter housing clicks into place, and now you're most of the way there. You can test fit the mask, make any fine tuning and adjustments if you need to. Once you get to this point, you can take this back apart. Just simply pop it back out. You're going to put glue all around this area, glue on the inside of on the inside surface here. Set that back in once the contact adhesive sets up. Now that's going to glue in, and that glues in also with the contact adhesive set up. And now you've got a completely sealed surface. You can fine tune everything. This is pretty generic as far as a middle of the road kind of structure goes, but you can go back to your printer and rescale that drawing, generate a new one if you find that the paper model is too big or too small for the face you're trying to fit. Kid sizes, obviously, you're going to scale down, make it smaller. Bigger adults, you might have to make it bigger. But that's it. At that point, we're going to then take that nose guard piece that we looked at earlier. All the materials we're working with are PLA. So PLA, aside from being biodegradable as a polylactic acid plastic, it's also a thermoplastic. So what happens is that we print out a very thin piece as a nose guard, and all you have to do is take this and run it under hot water or hit it with a hair dryer, and it becomes very malleable. So you're going to take that and you're going to just bend it right over your nose once it's warm, and you're going to make yourself a nose guard. And you can see in these masks, I've installed a nose guard, and that just simply makes sure that it fits tight to your face and gives you a contact and seal point so that it registers exactly to your face. You don't have to be too worried about the exact shape at this point in time, because you can always reheat it with a hair dryer or something after you install it in the Tyvek to reshape it to fit your nose exactly. But this makes sure that it's going to fit your face very, very well. And that's pretty much it. We'll talk a little bit briefly here about the filter itself. As I said in the prior video, or section of the video, I'm using 3-inch pleated Best Air expandable filter material. And the reason I use that is because you can just buy it as a filter, an air filter setup. It's much more like cotton fiber than it is like paper. It's more like cotton cloth. It's a great, Best Air makes some great products. I'm not paid by anybody, so I can say whatever I want. But I tried a lot of different materials, and the Best Air, this is a polyolefin-based fiber, and it's good down to, like I said, 300 nanometers. So it will restrict the flow of virus droplets through this material. It has got good electrostatic properties as well. I'm leaving the grid, the metal grid. A lot of people try and remove the metal grid. I just leave it. It's easy enough with aluminum. You can just cut right through it with scissors, and we simply take it, and I've been cutting it into trace it out with a marker, trace it out into a circle shape, cut it out, run a bead of glue inside your filter, drop this in, register it, and then when this has a lip, an interior lip, which will seat it down into and press that filter solidly against that base lip, and it seats it all into the glue. You let that set up, and again, I'm still using a contact adhesive. You let that set up, and you end up with these filter units, and you can build those in just a couple of minutes. And then it's simply a matter of cutting these rubber bands so that they're open. Glue on the anchor pieces, glue the rubber bands with a dot of adhesive, and these are wrapped with electrical tape just to hold them. But you put the clips together, and then before you know it, you got a fully operational, functional mask. Clips together, like yay, locks in place, and that's it. And you are good to go. Look on our Thingiverse listing for pictures, photographs of the assembly process, and good luck. Post any of your comments. We'd love to hear from you. Show me how you could decorate this, how you could make it pretty, because it certainly is not pretty right now. But at this point in the pandemic, we're more interested in how it works than how pretty it is. Thanks very much for your time. Have a great day.